Great. Thank you, Dan. So now we are recording. After we do introductions, and I'd like to especially get feedback from Manjunat and Dan Robinson, who are teaching right now, and also from those of us that taught during semester one with the same group of students, class 2019. And so that would be Daniel and Luke and myself, and Kelly also has worked extensively with them, and Dan Wessner. Then the next, I'd like to get questions from those who I called our onboarding, either to teach during this semester, the fall 2019 semester, or during fall 2018, or during spring 2019. And after that, I'd like to give you some specific dates and deadlines to come up, and Kelly will spend a few minutes talking about the process and show a document that has specific deadlines as we move through the process of onboarding a class. So let's get started with introductions. What I will do is I'll introduce myself, then start where at the top left of my screen with Andrea. So I'm Christy Hand. I'm the Chief Academic Officer here, been at Future Generations for about 11 years now, and am just so happy to be able to welcome all of you. So Andrea, could you introduce yourself, the course you're teaching, and your day job, and where you're living?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Andrea Brown, and I'm teaching the communication in the 21st century, and this will be the second time I'm teaching. It's changed just a little bit for this term, and it'll be starting in just next week, actually. I work for Johns Hopkins University under the Center for Communication Programs. It's based out of Baltimore, which is where I've been living for the last 10 years, and I've recently made a move, so now I'm based out of Minnesota, but still same job, same work. We spend a lot of time overseas doing social behavior change communication programs. I support primarily a malaria prevention program. And I think for many of you, you might know Dr. Ben Lazari, who is someone I work very closely with.
Thank you, Andrea. And Dan Wessner and Gabriella, they have snow there in Minnesota also, so you're not the only one. All right, Daniel, if we could move to you.
Yeah, hi everybody, welcome. Daniel Taylor, and many of you know me, and those who I haven't met yet, I look forward to. I'm president of Future Generations University, but it is fantastic to see the program growing. It's very important that we continue these faculty meetings so that we all are actually working together. It's very tempting with our scattered locations to be running in somewhat different directions. And so I congratulate Christy for calling us together and pulling us into a common direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Eric, you're next on my screen.
I'm Eric Pappas. I teach at James Madison University, and I'm a consultant to Future Generations for the past 4 or 5 years.
Great, thank you. And we don't see your picture there, but
I'm just looking. That's how I feel today.
Okay, sorry. Okay, look forward to the next time that you feel better. Okay, Jesse.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you folks. I haven't been on site too much lately, other than for the HLC visit. But I am still a faculty member, and I've been working with Future Generations for going on 5 years now. And I am the assessment director, and I teach social research methods sometimes, and I've taught with Christy before. I'm looking forward to getting back into things a little here with you after being away on another entrepreneurial journey.
You want to say what that entrepreneurial journey is, Jesse?
Yeah, recently opened the Central Virginia's first farm brewery and farm winery, just about 5 miles from my house, just down the road, on a really beautiful 40-acre plot that is the home place of Meriwether Lewis, of the Lewis and Clark team. So a lot of really cool history. It's a great neighborhood just outside of Charlottesville, and it's been great so far. Really exhausting, but quite great. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Jesse. Mary, you need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi,
Great.
I'm Mary Hufford, and I work with the Livelihoods Knowledge Exchange Network. I'm a folklorist. I've spent about 4 decades now, and counting, doing research in communities and teaching in universities and colleges, variety. But my emphasis has been on culture and environment, and working with communities to document environmental practices that are culturally driven. So anyway, I've worked with the Library of Congress and the mostly in the Appalachian region, but also in inner city communities. I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'm going to be teaching with my colleague Julie Maldonado, also from the Livelihoods Knowledge Exchange Network, social research methods in the spring.
Great, thank you, Mary. So they're taking over from where Jesse left off with class 2017. Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fleming. I am the Director of Learning Management. So you've heard from me, and as far as getting our courses up and running on Moodle and being the best blended learning place you can learn. Sorry, I've been coughing a lot, and it's causing less oxygen to go to my brain. Excuse me. Yeah, and so I help a lot with the PRC sequence, the ones that are the 18-week long courses, because those are the ones that we're trying to develop. We're trying to continuously work on the ePortfolio initiative, which is, I've talked to you all individually about how we want to use ePortfolio to help our students document their learning and to also produce some final products that they can bring back to their community and to their job place. Yeah, I think that's all. And I'm in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is about 4 hours from North Mountain.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, Dan Wessner.
Good morning, Dan Wessner. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, at the Posner Center for International Development. Future Generations is one of 61 international development organizations in a converted 19th century horse barn. So I'm actually seated here in a horse stall that I share with some other colleagues. I teach 2 courses, one with Dr. Hip. We teach in the fall theory and practice of language acquisition. And in a couple of weeks, I begin teaching with my wife, Liz Holdeman, lifetime development education. Both courses are an initiative alongside colleagues in Vietnam, working in the south of Vietnam with a team of teachers, educators, scientists, ecosystem specialists, to create a new curriculum for the Mekong Delta that focuses on sustainability and ecosystem resilience. So I'm interested in what some of you are saying, like Mary, culturally driven environmental practices. That's totally pertinent. And Andrea, 21st century communication skills. Yep, those are things that Vietnam is anxious to put in good practice.
Thank you, Dan. Naomi?
I'm Naomi Bates. I am located in West Virginia. I recently moved back here. I grew up here in Franklin, and so it's good to be back. My background is in GIS, water resources, and environmental science. I'm going to be teaching the strategic resource mapping class in the fall. I'm also working a bit with the ecosystem resiliency students that we have in the program now, helping out with that program. And I'm leading the BioMeridian project, which is a biodiversity monitoring project around the world, where we're doing a lot of acoustic monitoring in Nepal, and we've just started in the Chesapeake Bay and here on Spruce Knob near the headquarters.
Great, thank you, Naomi. Gabriella? You need to turn your unmute yourself.
Can you hear me
there
now?
You go. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Hi, I'm Gabriela Carrion. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I teach Spanish language and literature at Regis University, and I'll be following up the course that Dan Wessner has set up. I'm very, very new, so I'm learning a lot, including Zoom for the first time, but I'm excited to join this very talented group of people.
Thank you, Gabriella, and we're really happy to have you on board also. Ruben.
Good morning. I am Ruben Puentes. I am sitting here in my office in Maldonado, a small town in Uruguay. I am an agronomist. I have been working in natural resources, agriculture, natural resources, and the links between environment and development, particularly rural development. I have been teaching a course on nonprofit management, and I am also, I have been linked to Future Generation for the last, I guess, 7 or 8 years, and I am also the chair of the board.
Thank you, Ruben. Luke?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Luke Taylor-Ide. I currently, I guess, serve as specialization director for the leadership specialization, which is the other major academic specialization running right now with the class other than the Vietnamese and the linguistic students. And in addition to that, I tend to oversee most things that are taking place in the Appalachian region. So we have a couple other research projects, a small professional training program around maple syrup that we do with the Department of Agriculture, and also an ongoing partnership with the AmeriCorps program. And we have one AmeriCorps in the current class. And so those are all the things. Oh, and then I also, as a faculty member, am co-instructor on ACC 601 and I think it's 602, which are the Introduction to Applied Community Change and then Going to Scale courses that are the kind of two required pillar community change theory courses that all the students take throughout the program.
Okay, great. Thank you, Luke. Dan has just told me that Katie has joined him there at the Posner Center, and so if I could ask Katie to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a program associate working here from Posner, but working mainly with the linguistic students in Vietnam and coordinating how they connect to the masters as well as the Bending Bamboo program.
Thank you, Katie. Dan Robinson.
Good morning. I'm calling in from Fusanevaque, Bolivia, which is where I live. My background is in soils and agroecology. I did my dissertation 30 years ago in this area, and I live here, been living here in this place for 22 years. And I thought I would share my screen because that's what it looks like right now. My house is behind the trees on the right. There is a large Chinese company that is building the access to a bridge. It was the location was imposed on us. There's a Chinese company building it, and it's been going on now pretty intensely for the last 3 years. I've been with Future Generation since the first cohort. I've taught initially food and water, food security, food and water security. Also have taught courses related to conservation. I've spent a lot of time helping to set up protected areas in Bolivia and Peru, and I'm interested in particularly the areas in and around protected areas where people live and work and try to make a living. So I've also taught courses in sustainable livelihoods, and I'm currently teaching a monitoring and evaluation course with this current group. And in the spring semester, I'll be teaching sustainable communities. So kind of I've taught, I think, altogether about 12 different courses in different modalities, all from here, from Fusanevaque, which has gone from having dial-up connectivity, and supposedly I'm getting fiber optics installed in the next day or two. So.
Yay! All right, Dan. Okay. Good. Manjunat. Okay.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Manjunat Shankar. I work at Care Hospitals in Hyderabad, India. Currently, I'm actually in Naypyidaw, Myanmar. I'm doing a data policy course here, training session. So basically, I'm a public health guy, and I teach the Health for All course. And I want to apologize to Andrea and Christy for not responding to their emails, but I will do it very soon.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you, Manjana, and thanks for coming on. And Manju, we'll put you on the spot in just a couple minutes after we finish introductions, you and Dan. So just a heads up about that. Jody.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jody, and I have been here since 2012, and I am the registrar.
All right, and thank you, Jody, for being on. She's taken minutes for us for this meeting. Noam, you're on the phone.
Yes, hi, I'm Noam. I joined Future Generations in March. I recently moved to Washington, D.C. about a month and a half ago. I teach ethics and international affairs at George Washington University at the Elliott School. My area of research and teaching is human rights, and previously I was at Oxford University at the Bonavero Institute of Human Rights and at McGill at the Center for Human Rights there. Principally at Future Generations, I'm working now on advancing knowledge and public understanding of seed scale through our blog. I've been writing blog posts that are summaries and explanations of Daniel Taylor's, sorry, I just lost my connection for a moment.
We still hear you.
Sorry, okay. Of Daniel Taylor's Death and Lasting Change, and recently posted a blog post on seed scale on the website of McGill Center for Human Rights. And we are hoping that by the middle or the end of December, we will have the blog posts from each of the chapters of Just and Lasting Change online on the Future Generations blog.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you, Noam. What I'd like to do now is share my screen and show you the way our courses are laid out. I think that will be a good context then for hearing from our current course instructors, and then the ones that questions from ones that will be teaching. So I am going to share. All right. So as some of you know, but not all, we are currently in the cohort called Class of 2019, and this class started in February 2018. So we're in our second semester right now. The first semester that they had these students, and you saw the profile of the students in the document that I sent you, Class 2019 profiles, with a few students that joined were admitted with Class 2020. So the courses that we talked about, you've heard us talk about the PRC sequence. So this we have three categories of courses: a PRC, Project Research and Community, ACC, Applied Community Change, and PSK, Professional Skills and Knowledge. In our first semester, we had the PRC course, Graduate Study Foundations, which was essentially an introductory academic skills course and introduction to our technology. In the second term, the next class that we had was Intro to Community Change, a real core course for the methodology that we teach in Applied Community Change. And then two PSK courses, which are essentially related to our specializations. Nonprofit Management, which Ruben taught. So I taught Graduate Study Foundations. Luke and Daniel taught Intro to Community Change. Ruben taught Nonprofit Management. And Dan Wessner and Dr. Hip from Vietnam taught the Theory and Practice of Language Acquisition. And please feel free, I'll just take another minute, but to ask any questions about the sequence or the curriculum that we have if you want. We're in second semester right now. We're just about at that turning point where we have ended our first 8-week courses and are going into the second set of 8-week courses. Monitoring and evaluation, Dan Robinson is teaching right now. And this, as he said, goes for the full 18 weeks, so the full semester. And Health for All, Manjunat is teaching this right now, and this is one of our 8-week compact courses, like all the ACC courses. So Manjunat is just about done, has about another week, one more Zoom course in his course. So in just a second, I'll be turning it over to Manjunat and Dan Robinson to tell us their experience in teaching the course to helpfully inform the rest of you that are getting ready to teach your courses. So Dan and Manjunat, things that you've learned, frustrations that you've had, things that you would have liked to do differently, kind of things like that, and that will hopefully be a springboard for some conversation about our courses. PSK 604, 21st Century Communication. This is what Andrea is getting ready to teach, and this is the leadership specialization for our second 8 weeks. And lifelong development education, this is what Dan Wessner and his wife Liz will be teaching with the leadership development education specialization, so with our Vietnamese student. And then we will be getting into our third semester, which for class 2019, which is spring 2019. You have the dates here. Social research methods will be starting another cohort. And so there we'll have 2 cohorts going at the same time. Any questions as you're looking at this before I close this screen and turn it over so we can have some conversation, turn it over to Manjunat and to Dan? So you'll see here some of that. Mary and Julie will be teaching this social research methods. Dan Robinson, sustainable communities. Gabriella, bridging and negotiating differences. And Scott, who's not able to be on this call, Scott Lawson, will be teaching entrepreneurship. So you'll see a lot of our faculty members will start teaching in spring 2019.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like you have a cohort coming through, and it's 2 years, right? You don't introduce another cohort until after you won't have another cohort coming in this spring.
We will. We have class, our class 2020. We are still admitting students. If you
I see.
Like our faculty to help recruit, still admitting students. Application deadline of December 1st for
January 4th.
Next cohort.
Okay.
Okay.
January 4th is the deadline.
That's right. Okay.
Is right. Please recruit, and make sure that they know they've got an extra month to apply.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So then you'll see in now our spring, we'll have 2 cohorts running at the same time, and you'll see that we have some overlap of courses. So we'll have 2 cohorts then that are enrolled in entrepreneurship. And then you see we have the possibility of 3 cohorts in next fall, so in a year, going on at the same time here in fall 2019. And you'll see the list of courses there. It starts to get a little more complicated then. But this is a way that we hope to increase our student body. That's the way we want to scale up and keep increasing student body by introducing new cohorts and have them running at the same time. Okay, any other questions or comments about that?
Like, so for the 2019 quarter, in semester second, they don't have Health for All course? Like,
they will be, it's here, Manjunat. That's how we have, that's how the scheduling has worked right now. So if you see here, then it will be with, this will be, assuming we recruit another cohort here, then you'll have 2 cohorts running at once. Heads up.
Oh, okay. No, I was thinking the structure is fixed, like the courses happen in first semester, second trimester, like that. So
we're trying to get to that point with a similar rotation, but what we're also trying to do is being able to maximize capacity, and so have a couple cohorts feeding into one course like this. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Other questions as you're looking at this? Okay, let me stop share. So Manjana, since you were just talking, I'd like, if you don't mind, if you could speak to your experience teaching with this cohort. Dan, who will be speaking next, as he said, is probably 12 courses with us. This is not your first experience with Future Generations, since you've been a pretty long-term friend with Future Generations, but your first experience teaching a class with us. And this is also our first experience with this 8-week, except for last semester, this 8-week compact course. So if you could just take a few minutes to tell us about your experience, maybe what you've enjoyed about it, some of the frustrations, I think that would be helpful for us and those that are coming on.
Okay. Yeah, so you can call me the rookie faculty for Future Generation. But yeah, the thing is, it's been a learning experience for me also. Like I have to learn Zoom, I have to learn Moodle, I have to learn Mahara and other stuff. And Kelly has been great in working with me and supporting me technically. And so this is a different experience, sir, because most of the trainings that I've done are all face-to-face interview, face-to-face trainings, where you can see from their face that whether they've understood what I'm teaching or not, or by their non-verbal communications, or their by interest, stuff like that. Jesse is signaling something. Okay, anyway. So yeah, so here the main disadvantage I find is we develop a course and a curriculum, and then we upload the materials, and we don't know whether they are going through those materials or not. And the Zoom session, it's 2 hours per week, for every week, or like once a week, and I felt that was too, what do you call, that was too short, I felt, because I couldn't gauge whether the students were comprehending all the different concepts I was telling, or whether they're just attending. And even in the Zoom session, the participation is not like in a live classroom. So many of them are shy, many of them are hesitant. Then there are, even if they're not shy or hesitant, there are technical issues with internet and other aspects of Zoom session, which are sort of crippling, and we have to get adjusted to that. And the third is the purpose of Zoom session. I'm still trying to understand, in the sense it was supposed to be a discussion forum where the students would read and come, and then there'll be like a live discussion or something. But many of them are working, and there are 2-3 courses that they're taking from Future Generation. So I don't think they will go through all the contents that I posted. And the discussion has been sort of sometimes one way or minimalist, like 2-3 people participate. And it's very difficult to encourage them to participate or cajole them to start talking. And so like if you don't go to Coursera, or if you go to any of the open courseware, what happens is there are like video recordings, and they teach the course like as if they're in a class. They go from lecture 1 to lecture 2 to lecture 3, and then they will keep referring to the previous lectures. And what I had done was I had posted materials, but I think if we had posted some one teaching or one classroom sessions online and then shared them, then that might have been more useful, I felt. But mostly I will do it for the next class. So you can use online materials, but there's no guarantee that they will have the time to go through that. And I had even kept 5 points for class participation to discuss on forum, etc. But that also has been minimal. But the thing is, I would say like they do try work hard. Like they're working in the regular job. They're trying to do as much of mine and Dan Robinson's course as much as possible. And we can see that like in the assignments that they submit, we can see that they have at least attempted to grasp some of the materials. But to what extent, that remains a question. So, and in the assignments also, if you don't give clear, specific instructions, they then they will interpret the assignment in different ways. So, and communicate that also during the course. So I would also suggest that the assignment should be as specific as possible. And for example, in the assignments I submitted, I gave some illustrative questions that they need to answer in the assignment. But the students, instead of taking it as an illustrative example, they literally took those questions to be answered. And so either there's also there are big cohort of students from Vietnam, and they're having some problems understanding my English, which is like a mixture of Indian, British, and American English. So they are having problems understanding what I meant by which assignment and what that sentence means. So, and even when I designed a quiz, there were 3-4 questions which they got confused with. So those are the things I think I'll improve upon in the next course. Then the other thing that I'm struggling now is with grading. There I get like 10 assignments, and they started submitting, but I thought I would have time, but then my regular work took over and I couldn't get back to grading. So that's been a what you call I won't say a black mark, but that's one thing I'm regretting, that I didn't grade as soon as they were submitted. Now people are asking for feedback, and they're getting anxious, and it's just 1 week left now. Tomorrow will be the last session for this course. And I would say like either so for my next course, I'm thinking I'll keep few assignments, but that will be like a bigger assignments, and then it will be easier for me to grade, and it will be easier for them to understand. I can give more specific details about those assignments. So that's one thing I would like to think. And during our I had invited Dan Taylor for one of the Zoom sessions, and before that Zoom session, we did discuss some of the issues, and Dan did feel that maybe we should have like a screening criteria for Zoom sessions. So you ask some basic questions about the reading materials, and if they answer that, they will get admitted to that Zoom session or something like that. But I don't know how much technically it is feasible or not. But that's one thing that we can explore. And the other is Mahara and Mood. I don't know whether Mahara was a good. Like I put 2 assignments to be shared on Mahara, but now I'm having trouble grading them because Mahara is locking me out. So I'll get back to you, Kelly, on that. She's like, so today only I'm trying to grade as much as possible, and I'm getting issues with Mahara and other stuff. So maybe what for the next course, next if I teach the next one, what I would do is I would do all the assignments, like 8 assignments, and instead of class participation, etc., I would tell them to curate all their assignments into a Mahara page as the last assignment. I think that would be more feasible than they share and then it goes missing or something like that. So maybe that would also help them project their the Mahara is supposed to be like a LinkedIn for students or something. So that would also help them to showcase their whole assignments, all the things. So now they have done 10 assignments, one of which was group assignment. and they have only shared 2 assignments, which are like just part of what the bigger body of work that they did for this course. So maybe Mahara can be like a last assignment or sort of a class participation sort of assignment where once they share and they showcase all their assignment work, that will be graded. Their activity, yeah, something like that. So, yeah, those are my thoughts now. Any questions that I have to answer?
Yeah, thank you so much, Manjunata. I think you really illustrated the process of thinking that you've been going through and your experience through that. Does anybody have specific questions for Manjunata or things that this served as a springboard for your own questions? I again, thanks for that, for those reflections, Manjunata. I think you also have been able to come up with things that after first experience, there will always be things to change and improve on, and I think you've really identified a couple of good things.
I have a quick question about you mentioned that getting some of the students getting there to be engaged, I guess, or to participate on the Zoom sessions, and then you mentioned maybe doing fewer assignments, but maybe bigger assignments. And I'm wondering if the assignments have helped get the students engaged. So would that just how did the assignments impact the students, and did they turn them in on time or do them in time for your session? And perhaps that's why they aren't as participating as much during the Zoom.
Yeah, so like the group assignment, I think they coordinate with one another. But for the individual assignments, I would say like out of 16, around 5 to 6, you should expect to be submitted late, or they will ask for extension and you will give permission like that. But majority of the epic quiz and majority they did try to submit on time. But the assignments in the Zoom sessions, what I did was for example, the assignment was talking about developing a questionnaire and trying to pilot test it and writing a primary care project proposal like that. But in the Zoom session, what I was debating was about selective versus comprehensive primary health care, or different issues which are related to the reading content. It was not related to the assignment. And the reason I did that was it was to encourage participation, because I thought if we take up controversial topics or some things which are which will have a lot of different perspectives, then they will be able to participate. So I viewed Zoom sessions more as so the Zoom sessions, I would say, like the first half an hour would be like housekeeping, about feedback on general feedback on assignments, what is expected for the next assignment, then things like if they have any questions from the reading contents, if they had any problems technically, like housekeeping. And the next 1 hour would be for breakout rooms and for discussion topics that I would pose questions on. Then the last half an hour would be to summarize the discussion and try to link it with the reading materials. And then the last 15 minutes would be for Dan Robinson to do some part of his course. So that's the way it was generally structured. The discussion topics require some in-depth reading and some in-depth or what you can call like strong opinions to argue for one or the other and things like that. So, and once you break out in the rooms, the people who participate, the people who talk more than the people who are shy, it all depends on that. So it doesn't have that classroom physical dynamics where they meet just once a week on Zoom session. Yeah, and in the classroom, what happens? They will meet at least 2-3 times in the same class, in the same setting, and that becomes familiarity. That and then they start talking and arguing or discussing with one another. But in Zoom sessions, it's not the same number of people who come every day, every time. Some people get excused for, and some people come late. Some people want to come, but there are technical issues. So it's like out of 16, I don't think I ever had more than 11.
Right. So I'd like to, thank you so much, Manjunath. Great question, Andre. I'd like to pass it to Dan Robinson now because he gives a different perspective now of the 18-week course that doesn't focus so much on the Zoom sessions. As Manjunath just alluded to, Dan takes the last 15 minutes of the Zoom session. So, Dan, could you please talk about your experience, and then if we have questions after that, and then we'll turn it over to Kelly for her part.
Okay, well, I'll get back to the issue you just mentioned, Chris, because I had down 4 things I wanted to mention. The first is about assignments and grading. For the second cohort in a row, I have told them if they turn their assignments in on time, and it's a Sunday 5 minutes to midnight deadline, then I'll get the feedback to them the next day. And so that makes sure that as many people as possible turn it in, and then it's easier to grade because you do it in line, and so that's definitely works and I set that time aside on a Monday as much as I can. So that helps to really keep up, particularly when it's an online content thing. 1. 2, so as far as I'm concerned, there's no going back on that sort of a arrangement with the students. 2, we used quizzes for the first time, and I was of 2 minds before doing that, but found that it helps. I was previously using essay questions to make sure that people were covering the content, and really quizzes, well done quiz questions have the same effect. And in fact, when we had our 15 minutes of Zoom session, some of the liveliest discussions was about the quiz question that people disagreed on, and it's actually a common experience they all have with different viewpoints on it. So I think that's something I would incorporate in the future. So I had some pure on the online portion. Some weeks it was pure quizzes, which is graded automatically, and then a couple of weeks where it was, to say, 3 questions of quiz and then 1 sort of essay question, because I do like for them to take 2 separate ideas and relate them. You can't really do that on a quiz, but it does limit the amount of time that I, as an instructor, am grading things that could be graded otherwise. I do think there is space for having that feedback, for going into a document they produced and giving them direct feedback. They appreciate it. I get thanked for every comment, every feedback that they get. So definitely quizzes. Next week, I'm going to be in a 8-week course, and definitely the idea that you can make sure they're getting content and covering the content and doing that with quizzes, and then saving your feedback time for when they're relating new ideas, when they're starting to apply it to their own work. That's when you want to maximize your feedback time. One of the things that some of you will not be aware of is that in previous cohorts, the structure was based around residentials. For the first 7 cohorts, every semester we got together in India, second semester placed in Africa, third semester in Peru, fourth semester in the States for graduation. And so end of program evaluations always showed how important these residentials were, where they got to know each other, and there's a whole dynamic. And of course, we're trying to bring down costs. Those were very expensive to hold. These were obligatory residentials. And so in the course I'm teaching now, we're looking at ways of trying to find that same bump you get from having direct interaction between students from different countries, different cultures. And one of the things that I spent a lot of times on the residentials, I was usually associated with their practicums, with their applying their work in their communities for a practicum project. And so every residential that I was on, I had them give short presentations. So I found that each student really concentrated more on their material when they knew they were going to have to be presenting it to their peers. They're not as embarrassed with an instructor as they are with their peers. They want to do it do as good a job as possible for their peers. And then each student through the semesters got to know communities in different parts of the world pretty well because they heard it. So in this 18-week course, the last 9 weeks, we're going to be attempting a group dynamic where they meet in small groups and critique each other's work, and then that gets put onto Mahara, and eventually everybody's going to be seeing everybody else's work in their community. This is an experiment. As I say, we're trying to find ways through technology to get what used to be most important to them. So it's not easy, but we're trying on that. Last thing I'd say is office hours again are bomb. We have an hour set up each week for office hours, and so far nobody has shown up from my office hour. So, however, when we were transitioning from mainly online material to application in their communities, and since each student has a different context and things, I more or less forced them to meet with me, saying you really need to talk. And so we set these things up. And I think with the next class, I would start just saying, okay, these office hours, I'm going to talk with 4 of you or 3 of you. First come, first serve, and that way I would use that. I'm online, I'm available, but I'm also getting to know each one, because those one-on-one meetings I've been having have been very fruitful, but they haven't been in the office hour period. So I think I would switch that around and work with it. It's a little difficult in an 8-week format to have one-on-one time with each student, but definitely in the 18-week format, that would be, in my opinion, a good use of face-to-face time.
Thank you, Dan. Does anyone have specific questions for Dan or comments based on what he said?
Yeah, I want to. Office hours were also like for first 4 weeks I was online diligently and waiting for someone to come, but no one came knocking. And then last 3 weeks I've been like switching on my phone and leaving it at that. But most of the people who have any urgent queries, they contact me on WhatsApp, and once they contact, I can call them on WhatsApp and talk to them. So that's another way of communicating. Then for the group work, I made the Zoom available for my Zoom is set such that anyone can join my room and start discussing. So that they found useful. So some groups use my Zoom facility for discussing. And then yeah, I think I concur with Dan Robinson about the office hours, and maybe like we can I should hold some live sessions or something like that, for like a live lecture sessions or something. That might have been useful, I felt, instead of office hours.
Yeah.
But,
other comments or questions from those
one thing I would add is that when I did start more or less pushing them to sign up for times with me, in 2 separate occasions they got together and 2 of them met with me at once, and that was interesting.
Other comments or questions? What you've heard is really you've heard from the two different formats, which I think is important, because I think depending on what you're teaching, you can identify with one or the other, with what Manjunat has been doing in the 8-week compact course, or Dan has been doing in the PRC 18-week course.
I have a question. I guess for both a question and a comment. But specifically also for Dan, since Dan, you're doing a couple things I've kind of I attempted to experiment with when I taught last time, specifically the one-on-one meetings, which, while I know they're very meaningful to some students, I definitely would not repeat that, partially just because of the amount of time and confusion that it ended up taking on my end of people not, while they understood or kind of were able to remember steadfast when class time was, the needing to show up in a half-hour slot type of deal. I had people showing up 20 minutes late and then kind of saying, well, I didn't get enough time, and meanwhile I've got somebody else coming on. So I just had a lot of those types of issues, and felt that it was, that time was better used in class. Now, that being said, I do think the one-on-one engagement is important, and this comes back to the point of office hours. So I guess the first question was, when you're doing the one-on-ones, especially because I was doing that in a format where I canceled regular class, and you don't really have, a regular class like that. So are you using those to drive people to your office hours? Question number one. And then I guess the other question, and this is more a general one, either question or comment, is anybody else trying to entice people to office hours in a variety of contexts? Last semester, I had pretty good turnout, largely due to the Vietnamese students, but because I did what we called tool time. Now, tool time has gone on in as kind of a term-wide thing, which is just kind of an extra tech lab practice time. But I am certainly going to be trying to front load a lot of this peer discussion time and call it free help, free feedback. And I did do this too when I last taught Going to Scale. And I basically have that first hour recorded. And one idea I'm having is just to invite a bunch of guests for the first hour of my office hours throughout the term and talk about something. Or in our case, we have 2 faculty members, so 2 faculty members having a recorded conversation. So anyway, I'll let you respond, because I think this is an important time. We've all making time for office hours and then not using it effectively, meanwhile saying we're not getting enough face time with students. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it at the beginning of the term. It's an online portion. It's when we're transitioning from that into application, into what we call lab time, and people want very specific instructions. And I'm saying, well, your community context is very difficult, is very different. And besides that, I want you to use your imagination. It just is, if there's something that you've, like in case of monitoring evaluation, you're going to learn more if you actually propose from your own context something that really interests you. So that's when the face-to-face time comes. When they come and say, I've got this idea, this is what I want to do, and I say, perfect, do that. And and so that's kind of like, oh wow, I can really apply this to something. And Daniel, just for your case, it's Oliver is in a context. This is a student that's in the new cohort, but they already have monitoring and evaluation done by the University of Virginia or something like that in their program. But they're transitioning, they're doubling in size. And he's concerned that as they move to double the size, their effectiveness is going to drop. And so he's setting up a monitoring evaluation context to look at this, what's happening when you scale up, what's happening to the teachers and what's happening to the students. So that was his suggestion. So that wouldn't happen at the beginning of a term. That happens when they've gotten some content, and then when they have to be thinking about applying it, then these questions come up. And so that's when I think that the face-to-face time is really valuable because there's something concrete to discuss.
I want to follow on several of the comments that are made so far. Especially, I want to speak to Gabriella, Mary, Manju, and Andrea, who I thank you very much for joining our university program. Perhaps you've already gathered it is different from what you're used to with classroom-based instruction. And that, to my mind, has been the overarching challenge here. And I just want to give heads up to those of you who are joining and helping us out. I really first thank you, and secondly, the heads up. We cannot simulate a classroom or a campus-based program. And so many of the problems that we are having right now come because we're trying to simulate a classroom. Even things like having office hours where students walk down the hall and kind of knock on your office. We think that should be possible. They can just log on and come to your online office. The reality is that our learning environment is communities and the students work. And that is always going to take precedence over the fact that when we have students prisoners on a campus and we can tell them what to do. And Future Generations University yet has not figured out how to use the truly dynamic environment of the community. And we're moving there. And those of us who've been working on this for now a decade and a half are getting some insights. But the point I'm simply making, especially to Andrea, Manju, Mary, and Gabriella, is to experiment, number one. And number two, keep your courses simple. It's a lot easier if you've got fewer learning things that you're trying to do. Don't try to pack in too much. Do a few things well. You're going to be a lot less frustrated. And I think the students will learn those minimal things. The good news is that we've gone through our review from the Higher Learning Commission. We're expecting to get good marks. So we've got an open period of time where we can experiment and try some things out. So I just wanted, in welcoming you, I wanted to say, keep it simple.
Thank you, Daniel. We're right at our time. I'd like to turn it over to Kelly for a couple minutes. First of all, an announcement. We have our faculty college coming up, and while it's primarily for those full-time faculty or full-time administration and faculty, there are a couple sessions on Wednesday, November 7th and Friday, November 9th at 1:30, which deal with technology. And I'll be sending out an announcement inviting our part-time faculty to those, because those are opportunities to share solutions to many of the topics that we've just been discussing, because this has been a time for really throwing out more questions than coming up with solutions. And so these two times will be, the first one will be what we've called speed dating, which is learning from each other and using breakout groups in a Zoom session. So Kelly's really got a challenge coming up with how to do this. And I know she's going to step up to the plate. And then the Friday session will be a response to that speed dating in delving in more deeply to the issues that came up in that round robin speed dating kind of situation. So just a heads up, if you're available at 1:30 Eastern time, which will be standard time then, just having switched to standard time on that Wednesday, November 7th, Friday, November 9th. That's a heads up, save the date, save the time. I'd like to turn it over to Kelly for the last couple minutes to share your screen and speak about specific benchmarks and deadlines.
Sure, thanks, Christy. I realized we didn't get to point number 3 on the agenda, which was, Andrea got a chance to ask a question, but do realize that we do want you to be asking questions, because we know we don't have a formal onboarding process, and so there are sometimes gaps that somehow just we haven't communicated to one or the other person. It happened with Andrea and Manjunath, things that we thought we had clarified, and then it turned out we never actually said it. So just keep asking questions, and we'll try and keep informing you as to the way things are going. As Daniel said, we are really trying to rely on our faculty to bring some creativity to this process. He's right. There isn't, we and the world hasn't really figured out how to do really good learning from community in this blended learning online world. And we are trying to sort of recreate the classroom in the online setting, and that just doesn't work. It's frustrating for faculty, it's frustrating for students. But it means two things. One, we're all learning new skills. We're all learning how to teach and learn in a completely new place. And the thing about creativity, for those that are creatives, it takes time. It takes time and space. And so what we've been trying to build into your contracts and the sort of the instruction, the sort of dates and deadlines around building the courses is to give ourselves time and space to have creative ideas and to implement those in enough time that they actually work for students. So so that's why you'll hear from me a lot about deadlines, and we have a lot of different sort of benchmarks, as Christy liked to call them, for each of the courses. And so I just wanted to share with you this document. And also, before I do that, we all have access to the Team Drive, and within Team Drive, there's faculty resources. There's general reference, and then in general reference, there's faculty resources. And I'll be sending this out as a FYI email. And within faculty resources, there's this newly printed course readiness schedule. And as you can see, I have the deadlines for all the different, so because we have different classes coming online at different times, they have different deadlines. So for the most part, I'm trying to keep them all the same because it's easier for me to manage. So this is only for spring 2019. We've got 4 courses coming online right at the beginning of the semester, February 4th. And then we have the 3 PSK courses coming online in April. And as you can see, you have your different deadlines listed there. And I can also send this to you as well. I will be putting out a document, like, the first draft has passed for a couple of you, and you sent them in, that's fine. I will put a document together as to what I mean by final draft. It is quite intense. It goes into quite a lot of detail. The finalization process, which is where every week we go through each course, and we take a couple of the weeks and we finalize them, as I call it. That's really to get them like course ready, so that so a student could start on December 24th with week 1, and they would be able to figure out what's going on, that kind of thing. So it's that level of detail, and we need to spread it out this much so that we can get through all of the weeks before the Moodle lockdown date. Moodle lockdown means that your work in Moodle is done, and there's going to be a period of time where you won't have access to Moodle, so that we can standardize the look feel of Moodle, add in students, do a lot of stuff on the back end to make sure that all the creative processes we've gone through for the last couple months actually work. So that's some time for the learning management team to work on it. And then the students, you'll notice those dates are actually ahead of the start dates. Students really, especially in an online format, they need to have access to course material as early on so that they have time to look at it, to sort of let it filter through put it in their schedule for their lives. And so we really like to give them access for the weekend prior to the start of courses. And so then they're really ready for that first Wednesday Zoom session as well. So that was a pretty quick explanation of that.
Perfect. And yeah, you'll be sending that out, and also access to the faculty resources folder, which is a great portal to be able to get, one stop to be able to get some of these resources. Any final questions? Again, thank you so much for joining, for fitting this hour into your schedule. It's very helpful for us, and I hope it's been helpful to you. And like we said, Kelly will be getting in touch with those that are. We'll be continually in touch with those that are teaching next spring, and those that are teaching the next part of this semester. All right. That's all I have. Thank you so much. Again, take care, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.